My name is T. Barishavi Sampson, the e-tutor for this CSC 206 Human-Computer Interaction. We are moving straight to Section 3, Course Unit 3, Participatory Design, where the introduction still remains the same but at the end of this participatory design class, it is expected that students should be able to describe the characteristics of participatory. They should also be able to know the meaning of user-centered design, distributed participatory design, and entography. The students should be able to understand hybridism and the third space concept. The students should also be able to explain the diversity of participatory design technique operating in third space. So, introduction. Participatory design. Participatory design is an approach to design that attempts to actively involve in the end users in the design process to help ensure that the product design meets their need and is usable. In participatory design, end users are invited to cooperate with researcher and developer during a system interaction design process. They participate during several stages of the design process, such as in the initial exploration and problem definition, both to help define the problem and to focus idea for solution. During development, they help evaluate proposed solutions. Participatory design can be seen as a move of end users into the world of research and developers, while a move of researcher and developer into the world of the end user is known as empathic design. These units look at both as necessarily participatory design. What this unit is going to take care of is, in participatory design, it involves the user and the researcher and the developers, whereby the user is invited into the world of researcher and developer and researcher are invited into the world of user. So both of them see things from their own perspective, and this process is very, very effective in design process. Major concept of participatory design: user design versus user-centered design. There is a very significant differentiation between user design and user-centered design. There is an emancipatory theoretical foundation and system theory bedrock on which user design is founded. In user-centered design, users are taken as center in the design process, consulting with users heavily but not allowing users to make decisions, non-empowering users with tools that the experts use. For example, most of the internet documentation and information content are user designed. Users are given the necessary tool to make their own entries, while users are allowed to propose changes or have input on the design. A smaller and more specialized group decide about features and systems design. What I'm saying is that in the user-centered design, user will be put at the center, and it will be a user will be evaluated by the expert, but the user will not be allowed to make any decisions. They will be given room to make their entries, but this decision will be made by a smaller groups of experts. Ethnography and participatory design. In participatory design, workers enter into the design contest, while in ethnographic as used for design, the designer enter into work contest. Both make workers feel valued in the design and encourage workers to own the product. The user is an active member of the design. The concept of participatory design, user design versus user center continue. So participatory design in software development. This is the user involved in design, with more emphasis on the involvement of a broad population of users rather than a small number of users representatives. Many groups and projects apply participatory design research method on a regular basis and hence are part of the development and appropriation of the method, as well as the disseminating the method to industrial practice. So in a distributed participatory design, DPD is a design approach and philosophy that supports the direct participation of users and other stakeholders in system interaction analysis and design work. Nowadays, design teams most often are distributed, which stress a need to support and knowledge gathered from design of distributed system. Distributed participatory design aims to facilitate understanding between different stakeholders in distributed design team by giving each of the opportunity to engage in hands-on activities, whereby the user is made to participate in the design work. The ethics involved in participatory socio-technical approach devised by Marford. It states that the system development is about managing change and that non-participants are more likely to be dissatisfied. There are 3 levels of participation: consultative, representative, and consensus. Design groups including stakeholders, representatives makes design decisions, and job satisfaction is the key to solutions. Characteristic of participatory design. Participatory design is context and work-oriented rather than what? System-oriented. It is collaborative and interactive, meaning that both the designer or developer or researcher and the user, none of them will sit idle throughout the development process. Both of them will carry out activities. It is not system-based. It is collaborative and interactive. Hence, the units focus on participatory practice that share these attributes, including site selection of participatory design workshops, story collecting and storytelling through text, photography, and drama. D. Games for analysis and design. E. The correlation of descriptive and function prototype. And we also have, lastly, brainstorming, pencil, and paper exercise. Participatory design is a set of theory, practice, and study related to end user as full participant. in activities leading to software and hardware, computer product, and computer-based activities. The field is extraordinarily diverse, drawing on the fields such as user-centered design, graphic design, software engineering, architecture, public policy, psychology, anthropology, sociology, labor studies, communication study, and then political science. So characteristics of participatory. Continue. Researchers and practitioners are brought together but are not necessarily brought into unity by pervasive concern for the knowledge, voice, and right of the end user, often within the context of software design and development or of other institutional settings, e.g., workers in companies, corporations, universities, hospitals, and government. This unit primarily addresses methods, techniques, and practice in participatory design, with modest anchoring of those practices in theory with the involvement of the software professionals and the end users. The hybrid and the third space concept of participatory design. This concern with participatory methods that occur in the hybrid space between the software professional and users. Why is this hybrid space important? Why? Tell us. An influential argument was made that the border or boundary region between two domains or two spaces is often a region of overlap or hybridism. That is a third space that contains an unpredictable and changing combination of attributes of each of the two bordering spaces. In such hybrid space, enhanced knowledge exchange is possible. Precisely because of those questions, challenges, reinterpretation, and renegotiations, these dialogues across differences and within difference are stronger when engaged in by groups, emphasizing not only a shift from assumption to reflection, but also from individual to collective. Guides and expectation of addressing on third space concept. There is an overlap between two or more different regions or field between us. It is not owned by any reference field, but partaking of selected attributes is done in reference field. Potential site of conflict exists between or among references or reference field. Hence, questioning and challenging of assumptions are unaffordable. Mutual learning and synthesis of new ideas are core benefits when agreed working language among the participants is ensured. When working assumptions and dynamics are ensured, understanding relationship and collective actions emerge while dialogues across and within different disciplines exist. Consideration in design process. What is considered to be data award posers? The rules of evidence may become challenges to overcome. How are the conclusions drawn become issue to be resolved? Reduce emphasis on authority and increase emphasis on the interpretation and norms. Reduce emphasis on the individualism and increase emphasis on collectivism result in heterogeneity. So organizations comprises multiple constituencies, each with their own professional identity and views of others. By contrast, the method allows for the creation of new perspectives and new locations, and they acknowledge the possibility that each participant can make different choices at different moments about where to locate his or her perspective, standpoint, and thus accountability. There is a need for a new set of skills and competency that goes beyond technical design skills to create conditions that encourage a collaborative design process and active reflection for working with groups. This push on traditional boundaries between the users and designer. A large part of design process, especially in large-scale projects, an organization involves several actors. It's not dedicated to analytical work to achieve a solution, but mostly to effort at reconciling conflicting conceptual frames or at translating one frame into another. Much work of this designer is concerned with defining collectively what the relevant problem is and how to do what, how to evaluate such problem. It's very important because at the design process, it involves a lot of professionals, and those professionals need to identify areas that need reconciliation, and those areas that need reconciliation must be conceptualized into frames, and how to translate those frames, they are saddled with the responsibility of translating those frames into functionality, and doing so they need to identify relevant problems and how to do what, how to evaluate and resolve that problem is the work of the designer. So participatory design in human-computer interaction in software development. Now, let's look at this area. Participatory design desire to bridge the gap between what? The two space. That's why they call it hybridism. This word of the software professionals and the word of the end user, each word has its own what? Knowledge. How the user understands a system is different from how what the software professional or developer understand it. So in order to bridge and bring the two, you understand, to closeness and resolve the difference between the two, this is the reason why we bring in participatory design process. So each one has its own word, knowledge, practice, and well-defined boundaries. Movement from one word to the other is known to be what? Difficult. The difficulties manifested in our elaborate method for requirement analysis, design, and evaluation, and in the frequent failure to achieve products and services that meet users' needs and or are successful in marketplace. Traditional scientific practice in ACI has focused on instruments and interventions that can aid in transferring information between the user's world and what? The software developer's world. Most of these traditional methods are relatively one-directional. For example, we analyze the requirements from the users. We deliver a system to the user, and then we collect usability data from the user. While there are many specific practices for performing these operations, Relatively few of them involve two-way discussions, and fewer still avoid opportunity for the software professional to be what? Surprised, to learn something that we didn't know we need to know. So the PD traditional has from the outset emphasize mutuality and reciprocity, often in an hybrid space that enable new relationship and understanding. The mutual validation of diverse perspectives, Floyd 1987 analyzed software practice into two paradigms, which she termed product-oriented focus on the computer artifact as an end in itself, and process-oriented focus on the human work process, with the computer artifact as means to a human goal. In her advocacy of balancing these two paradigms, Floyd noted that the process-oriented paradigm require mutual learning among users and both and developers. Most of PD theories and practice require what? The combination of multiple perspectives, in part because complex human problems require multiple disciplines, e.g. software expertise and work domain expertise for good solutions, and in part because the workplace democratic traditional remind us that all of the interested parties should have a voice in constructing a solution method suitable for a software professional organization with concrete method suitable for what? For work with an end user. Muller and colleagues, Muller and et al. Elaborated on this taxonomic dimension by asking who work domain serve as the basis for their method. At the abstract end of the continuum, the user have to work to enter the world of the software professional in order to participate, e.g. rapid prototyping. At the concrete end of the continuum, the software professional have to enter the world of user in order to participate. For example, ethnography and end-user design by purchasing software for small companies. What about practice that did not occur at the abstract or concrete endpoint of the continuum? What about the practice in between? Yes, the ability. This practice turned out to occur in an uncertain, ambiguous, overlapping disciplinary domain that does not what belongs to either the software professional and the end user. E.g., these practices occur in neither the user's turf or the professional turf. The practice in between the extreme are hybrid practices and constitute the third space of participatory design. So negotiation, shared construction, and collective discovery in PD and ACI. This description is a diversity of participatory design techniques, method, and practices that provide hybrid experiences or that operate in intermediate third space in ACI, because the theme is hybridism. These descriptions are organized in terms, strategies, and moves that introduce novelty, ambiguity, and renew awareness of possibilities. occurring at the margin of existing field or discipline, a storytelling method. Are you with me? Provide a space in which people negotiate the naming and defining of workplace activities. Site selections. One of the simplest parameters that can be manipulated to influence ability is the site of the work. There are two approaches to participatory design. One, bringing the designer to the workplace, or bringing the workplace to the designer room at the site different from the workplace. This selection of the site can be important in discussion of participatory architecture practice. Workplace site selections. Being in foreign environment and with other users will tend to take a more general view of things. However, when collaborating with users in their workplace context, users tend to feel more at ease as they are on their home ground. The designer are the visitors. Tools and environment are physically present and easy to refer to. This makes for a conversation grounded in concrete and specific work experience. The idea was born to create a type of design event with activities in both environment and with two sets of both resources to support design collaborations. New site selections. In terms of abbreviation, the selection of sites can be what? Deliberate strategy to introduce new experience or perspective to one or more parties in the design process. A decentering move that can bring people into position of ambiguity, renegotiation of assumption, and increased exposure to heterogeneity. Site selection initially appeared to be a matter of moving across the boundary between different work cultures rather than living within the boundary. The use of common design practice across sites, however, makes those practices and the membership become stable features that persist across multiple sites. At the same time, the practice and even the membership grow and evolve within exposure to new sites and new understanding. In this way, the practice becomes an evolutionary embodiment of the knowledge of the learning of the group. Benefit of using new sites: improved learning and understanding. It is moved from symmetric of ignorance toward symmetric of knowledge. A diverse party educate one another through a symmetric of learning, and even a kind of transformation through exposure to new ideas. The selection of sites can also lead to the strengthening of the voices that were comfortable at each site. Greater ownership. The procedure could strengthen the user involvement in their projects. There will also be increases in commitment and ownership of the involving knowledge and design of the group. Workshops. The workshops may serve as another alternative to other site selections. Workshops are usually held to help diverse parties, interested parties or stakeholders communicate and commit to share goals, strategies and outcomes, e.g. analysis, designs and evaluations, as well as workplace change objectives. Workshops are often held at sites that are in essence of neutral. They are not part of the software professional's workplace, and they are not part of the worker's workplace. More importantly, workshops usually introduce novel procedures that are not part of conventional working practice. These novel procedures take people outside of their familiar knowledge and activities and must be negotiated and collectively defined by the participant. Workshops are thus a kind of hybrid and thought space in which diverse parties communicate in a mutuality and familiarity and must create shared knowledge and even procedures for developing that shared knowledge. The best known workshop format in PD is future workshop. So a future workshop proceeds through three stages: critiquing the present, B, envisioning the future, and implementing or moving from the present to the future. These three activities involve participants in new perspectives on their work and help to develop new concepts and new initiatives. A number of workshops are focused on simple materials and informal diagrams rather than on formal notations. The tools are simple diagrams or drawing with no special formalism. Because staff members participating in the workshops, as well as those whom the results are later presented, typically have no experience. Using technical description, a workshop is described as a familiar generative tool of activities that are selectively combined into strategic design under an overall conceptual strategy that combines market research, what people say, entropy, what people do, and participatory design, what people make. The activities include the construction of correct focus of thinking, e.g., how do you expect your work to change in the future? Mapping, laying out an envisioned work area on paper, filling or use pictures and words to show a health-related experience in your past and storytelling. A type of storyboarding workshop format is described as that in which people create narratives using photographs, putting them in sequence, and in many cases altering typical true traditional of speech bubble to show what people were thinking or doing. The various workshop approaches have several commonalities. Each workshop brings together diverse participants to do common work, to produce common outcome, and to develop a plan of joint actions. There are thus opportunities that require mutual education and negotiation, creation of understanding, and development of shared commitment. Each workshop takes place in an atmosphere and often in a site that is not native to any of the participants. Thus, all of the participants are at a disadvantage of being outside of their own words, familiar setting, and they must work together to define their new circumstances and relationships. The combination of diverse voice leads to synthesis of perspective and knowledge. Benefit. Advantage claimed for this type of hybridism include development of a new concept that have direct and practical value for product design. Combination of different people idea into unified concept. Production of artifacts that are the expected and useful inputs to the next stage of the development process. Narrative structures. Stories and storytelling. Stories and storytelling have played a major role in ethnographic work since before there was a field called human-computer interaction. Stories have also had an important history in ACI. Stories in participatory work may function in at least three ways. First, they may be used as a trigger for conversation, analysis, or feedbacks. Second, they may be told by end users as part of their contribution to the knowledge required for understanding products or services, opportunities, and for specifying what product or services should do. While third, they may be used by the design team to present their concept of what a design service or product will do, how it will be used, and what changes will occur as a result of hypermedia technology can be utilized to enable community tell their own stories with the intention that polarity, dissent, and moral space can be preserved. It enables multiple authors reuse community materials selectively, telling different stories within within a common context. The different accounts were organized according to theme and laid out spatially on the image of a fictitious island from navigation by end users. The work enters several areas of aspect of addressing first the author of the stories, e.g. community members were using hypermedia technology for the first time and were thus in the role of learners, even while they were the owners of the story and were thus in the role of expert. Second, the author wrote from their own perspectives, which was sometimes in a strong conflict with one another. Third, the author could make use of one another's material, effectively moving away from the single author narrative and into a kind of collaborative collect of materials which convey interlinked stories. Fourth, just as the community members were negotiating and defining their roles as learners experts, the software professional researchers were also negotiating and defining their own roles as expert facilitator students. Using paper and pencil to tell a story. A second line of practice and research has emphasized end users telling their story using a system of paper and pencil, card-like templates. The earliest version was the collaborative analysis of requirements and design card techniques, later developed into a more general tool. The card-based practice used pieces of cardboard about the size of playing card. Each card represents a component of the user work or live activities, including user interface events, e.g. screenshots, social events, conversations, meetings, and cognitive motivationals, and effective events, e.g. the application of skills, the formation of goals and strategies, surprises and breakdowns, evaluation of work practice. The cards were used by diverse teams in analysis, design and evaluation of works and technology, because the card was novel object to all the participants. They occasioned thought space questioning and negotiations, resulting in a new shared understanding and co-constructions. Often, teams used the card to prepare a kind of storyboard, narrating the flow of work and technology used, and annotating or innovating cards to describe that work. The resulting poster formed narratives of the work that were demonstrated to be understandable to the end user, corporate officers, and software professionals, and which led to the insight and decisions of a large commercial value. Using photograph for storytelling. Stories can be told in many ways. One approach that has informed recent PD work is end user photographs through A. Taking pictures, and B. Organizing pictures into albums. These activities allow end users to enter into a kind of native ethnograph, documenting their own lives. In keeping with the issue raised in preceding story section, it is important that the informants themselves, the end users, control both the camera and selection of images. They thus become both authors and subject of photographic account of their activity. This dual role leads to one kind of hybridity in which the photographic activities partake of both the world of common social life and the world of documenting and reporting on working conditions. Photo documentaries were used as a means of providing familiar, concrete artifacts to enable design collaboration. Photo documentaries are used as one component of a set of users' composed diary techniques, with a consequent user-curated collage to serve as a rich source of discussion. So, end user photograph is an interesting case of hybridity and production of thought space. Photograph is a good example of an in-between medium, one that is part of many people's informal life, but that is also an intensively studied medium of communication and augmentation. Photographs occurs at the margin of most people's work, and yet can easily be incorporated into their work. Discussions around photographs and combination of photographs into photo narratives or collage can lead to mutual learning and more ideas, particularly through inclusion of the voice of the photographers, the viewers, and especially the people depicted in the photographs. Benefit: the use of end user photographs appear to be new and experimental, and there are few strongly supported claims of benefit. Informal claim of sources and contribution include the following: richer contextualized communications medium between end users and designer. In some cases, designers were not or themselves software professionals. Stronger engagement of designer with end user works. Enhanced sharing of views and needs among end users, leading to stronger articulation by them and a collective voice. The informant should make their own decision about what was important and therefore what they should photograph. Drama and video. Drama provides another way to tell stories in the form of theater or video, one of the important tensions with regards of drama in PD is the question of whether the drama is considered a finished piece or changeable work in progress. Many PD drama practitioners make references to Boyle theater of the oppressed. Boyle described theatrical techniques whose purpose was explicit to help a group or a community find its voice or voices, articulate its positions or positions. The most influential of Boyle's idea was this forum theater, in which a group of non-professional actors perform a skit in front of an audience of interested parties. The outcome of skit is consistent with the current event and trend, often to the dissatisfaction of the audience. The audience is then invited to become authors and directors of the drama, changing it until they approve of the outcome. Changes in work pattern and work group relations were acted out by software professionals in the end user's workplace. Using cardboard and plywood prototypes in anticipation of a new technologies, the workers serve as the audience and the critics, the envision work activities and working arrangement. The drama was carried out interactively with change until it was more supportive of the skill work of the people in the affected job. The researcher made repeated visits with more detailed prototype, again using vehicle of a changeable drama to continue the design dialogue with the workers. This work was widely credited with protecting skilled work from inappropriate automation and leading to a product that increased productivity while taking full advantage of workers' skills. Muller et al. Presented a relative tutorial demonstration piece called Interface Theater with the stated goals of engaging a very large number of interested parties in a review of requirement and design, e.g., in an auditorium. In interface theater, software professional acted out a user interface look and feel, using the theatrical stage as the screen, with each actor playing the role of what? Of a concrete interface component. Dramatic approach brings a strong overlap of the world of end users and the world of software developer, showing concrete projection of ideas from one world into the other world, and in most use allowing modification of those ideas. Drama is marginal to the world domain of most software professionals and most end users, and thus moves all parties into an ambiguous area where they must negotiate meaning and collaboratively construct their understanding, agreement, conflict, and new idea can emerge as their multiple voice and perspectives are articulated through this rich communication medium. Benefits of drama: building a bridge between the world of software professionals and users, enhancing communication through the use of embodied, acted out experience and through contextualized narrative. 3. Engaging in small and large audience through direct or acted mediated participation in shaping the drama, influencing usage and design of the technology. 3 and 4. Increasing designer empathy for users and their work. And 5. Simulating use of not yet developed tools and technology to explore new possibilities. Then 6. Fuller understanding by focus group member, leading to a more informed discussion. Games. So this is another participatory design. From theory to practice, The concept of game has had an important influence in the participatory method and technique. Hence, theoretical work emphasizes the negotiation of a language game. In the course of bringing diverse perspectives together in participatory design. In this view, part of the work of heterogeneous group is to understand how to communicate with one another. The work of heterogeneous team is, in part, the mutual validation of diverse perspectives. Games have been an important concept in designing practice with convergent strategies of enhancing teamwork and dramatic work practice within the team when properly chosen. Game can serve as a leveler in at least two ways. First, games are generally outside of most work, job, and tasks. They are thereby less likely to appear to be owned by one worker at the expense of the alienation of the non-owners. Second, games are likely to be novel to most or all of the participants. Design group members are more likely to learn game at the same rate without large differences in learning due to rank and authority or background. This in turn can lead to greater sharing of ideas. In addition, game can help groups of people to cohere together and communicate together better. One of the purposes of games is enjoyment of self and others, and this can both live in a project and build commitment among project personnel. Design by playing approach introducing several games into participatory design practice. Examples include specification game, a scenario-based game based on a set of situation cards, each of which describe a workplace situation. Players, members of heterogeneous analysis design team, took turns drawing a card and leading the discussion to the work situation describing on the card. Organizations, kits, and desktop publishing game, in which card illustrating component of work or outcome of work were placed on poster with annotation card. A card game for laying out and or creating in inciting or proposed work activities flow, pictive or paper and pencil game for detailing screen design icon design game, a guessing game for innovating new idea for icon. This game assumes subsequent refinement by a graphic designer. Interface theater for design review with very large group of interest party. The game emphasizes hands-on, highly conversational approaches to discussing both the user interface concept itself and the work processes that it was intended to support. The technology game had simple shapes that stand for technologies. Again, playing those shapes onto the work environment in large-scale game. Finally, the scenario game moved back to the real world, enacting possibility based on new ideas from the preceding three games. The enactment may be video recording, both for documentary purposes and to generate further video material for another cycle of 4 games. Each of these games will take all of its players outside of their familiar discipline and familiar working practice, but strategically reduce the anxiety and uncertainty of the situation by using the social scaffolding of the game. Each game requires its player to work together through mutual learning to understand and define the content of the game and to interpret those contents to one another in terms of multiple perspectives and discipline. The conventional authority of the software professional was thus replaced with a shared interpretation based on contributions from multiple disciplines and perspective benefit. Participatory design work with games has been claimed to lead to the following benefits: enhance communication through the combination of diverse perspectives, enhance teamwork through shared enjoyment of working in a game-like setting, greater freedom to experiment and exploit new ideas through flexible rules and redefinition of rules during game, improve articulation of the perspective, knowledge, and requirement of workers, new insights leading to important new analysis and design with document commercial value. Preceding section have considered hybridism in participatory activities such as site selection, workshop, story, photograph, drama, and game. This section continues the survey of participatory practice that bring user and software professional into unfamiliar and ambiguous thought space setting. In construction, collaborative construction of various concrete artifacts comprises low-tech prototype for analysis and design, cooperative prototyping, low-tech prototype that include participatory prototyping. Low-tech prototypes may lead to thought space experience because they bring people into new relationship with technology, relationships that are new in at least two important ways. First, the end users are often being asked to think about technologies or applications that they have not previously experienced. Second, in participatory work with low-tech prototypes, end users are being asked to use low-tech material to reshape the technologies, a design by doing approach. In this way, participatory work with low-tech prototype involve much more user contribution and user initiative than more conventional use of paper prototypes as surrogates for working system in usability testing. The Utopia project provided impressive demonstration of the power of the low-tech cardboard and plywood prototype to help a diverse group to think about new technologies, office layouts, and new working relations that might result from them. Benefit: the low-tech participatory prototyping approach benefits include enhanced communication and understanding through grounding discussion in concrete artifacts, enhancing incorporation of new and emergent ideas through ability of participants to express their idea directly via the low-tech material and through the construction of artifacts that can be used in other techniques, especially drama and video documentaries. Then 3, enhance working relationship through a sense of shared ownership of the resulting design. Then 4, practical application with measure successes in using low-tech design approaches to real product challenges, achieving consequential business goals. Corporate prototyping. So in construction, corporate prototyping, this last section on participatory method is concerned with software prototyping. The potential of corporate prototyping is several projects using different technology infrastructure led to enhance communication with end user, improved incorporation of end users' insights into the prototypes, and stronger collective ownership and collective action planning by the team. Also observe in times of consuming breakdowns in the design process itself when new ideas require significant programming effort. In a different prototype approach, a system is delivered to its end user as a series of interactive prototypes, each of which gradually add functionality. What appears to be critical is that the prototype functions as a crucial artifact in the end user's work, such as a resource of document for librarians, an online event checklist that served as the crucial coordination point for the work of diverse contributions, or a database supporting funding work in a non-profit organization. Trig 2000 provided a series of observations and tactical recommendations about how to engage the user in evaluation that both they and the software professional had agreed and were needed. This very brief survey of corporate prototyping and interest delivery shows several aspects of hybridity. In the case of cooperative prototyping, the cooperative work may be done in a physical touch space that is neither the end user's office nor the software developer office. In the case of this delivery of iterated prototyping, each prototype is presented in the end user setting, but it is unusually and only partially functional, and thus occasion reflection about its nature, its roles in the end user's work, and ultimately the work itself. In both cases, the invitation or perhaps the necessity of the end user's action to help shape the technology becomes an important means of refocusing their attention, as well as the attention of the software developers. The ensuing conversations are concerned with the interlinked feasibility of changes to technology and to work practice with attributes of hybridity, including polyvocal dialogue, challenging one another assumptions, and developing plans for collective action. Brainstorming. The most well-known idea generation techniques is brainstorming, introduced by Osborne in 1957. His goal was to create synergy within the members of a group. Ideas suggested by one participant will spark the ideas in other participants. Subsequent studies challenged the effectiveness of group brainstorming, finding that aggregates of individuals could produce the same number of ideas as groups. They found certain effects such as production blocking, free riding, and evaluation apprehension were sufficient to outweigh the benefit of synergy in brainstorming groups. Brainstorming is an important group building exercise for participatory design. Designers may brainstorm ideas by themselves. So brainstorming is a group is more enjoyable, and if it is a recurring part of the design process, play an important role in helping group members share and develop ideas together. The simplest form of brainstorming involved in a small group of people. The goal is to generate as many ideas as possible on a pre-specified topic. Quantity, not quality, is important. Brainstorming sections have two phases. The first for generating ideas and the second for reflecting upon them. The initial phase should last no more than an hour. One person should moderate the section, keeping in time, ensuring that every participant and preventing people from critiquing each other's idea. Discussion should be limited to clarifying the meaning of particular idea, and a second person record every idea, usually on a flip chart or transparency on an overhead projector. After a short break, participants are asked to reread all the ideas. Each person mark their 3 favorite ideas. One variation is designed to ensure that everyone contributes, not just to who are verbally dominant. Participants write their ideas on individual cards or post-it notes for a pre-specified period. The moderator then reads each idea aloud. Authors are encouraged to elaborate but not justify their idea, which are then posted on a whiteboard or a flip chart. Group members may continue to generate new ideas inspired by the other. What they are simply saying is that during brainstorming section, it allows people to produce multiple ideas, and that process is divided into 2. The first process is when the idea is generated. Then the second process is to reflect on those ideas, and then from there the section can be switched to the next section, whereby all the ideas that is generated is placed on the flip chart. Then the moderator can now ask the author of those ideas to put a flesh into those ideas that have been generated. Then from there, all the participants will write 3 best of the idea that is generated on the flip chart. Then from there, they are not allowed to criticize other people's ideas. They were allowed to do what? To discuss those ideas, not to even justify those ideas, but at least to discuss a better idea and the possibility of those ideas. Another variant of brainstorming is called video brainstorming. It's a very fast technique for prototyping interactions. Instead of simply writing or drawing the ideas, participants act them out in front of video camera. The goal is the same as other brainstorming exercises, that is, to create as many new ideas as possible without criticizing or critiquing them. However, the use of video combined with paper or cardboard mock up encouraging participants to experience the details of the interactions and to understand each idea from the perspective of the users, while preserving a tangible record of the idea. Each video brainstorming idea should take 2 to 5 minutes to generate and capture, allowing participants to do what? To simulate a wide varieties of the ideas very quickly. The resulting video clip provides illustration of each idea that are easier to understand and to remember than handwritten. Yes, because when you stage art or video produce your idea, it stays longer in the memory of the participant, and the goal is still the same thing. The goal is to generate more ideas as possible. So video brainstorming requires thinking more deeply about each idea than traditional oral brainstorming. It is possible to stay vague and general when describing an interaction in word or even with a sketch, but acting out the interaction in front of the camera forces the author of the idea and the other participant to consider seriously the details of how a real user will actually interact with the idea. Video brainstorming also encourages designers and users to think about new ideas in the context in which They will be used video clicking clips from a video brainstorming section, even though rough, are much easier for the design team to interpret than written idea from a standard brainstorming section. Unlike standard brainstorming, video brainstorming encourage even the quietest team member to participate. Yes, the quietest member will definitely be forced to do what? To participate during brainstorming section, because it involves a lot of stage acting out the ideas, which will eventually interpret how the real user will interpret with the idea in real life, which carry both the author and the participant along